So today we are going to be installing this electric water pump with replacement thermostat and complete wiring harness on this 96 Impala stock water pump. Now we are going to show you in this video how to wire it up all the way to the fuse box over here. So as soon as you turn the key and start the engine, everything will be running with the electric water pump. I have another video already to show how to remove and install a mechanical water pump, so please watch that for the proper removal of a stock water pump first. Thank you. Now that we have the water pump removed, we're going to want to remove this coupling here, which may take a little bit of force because it does have a O-ring that's kind of gripping it. So you should be able to use a small flathead screwdriver or pry tool to remove that coupling, and we are not reinstalling it. So you do want to make sure that this seal is new before you put the water pump back on with the electric motor, just to ensure that you don't have any oil leaks from that point. Now the particular electric water pump we're installing today is a Meziere HD. I will have a link in the description below. This comes with the plug and a freeze plug. The electric wiring components are not included as far as the basic wiring for the water pump. We got this kit from summitracing.com, and this is a basic painless wiring heavy duty water pump electrical harness. Now that kit comes complete with the relay block, it comes with the relay, circuit breaker, etc. So all of this is going to be wired up when we're finished, and we'll show you how. It's also always a good idea to replace the thermostat whenever you're replacing the water pump or modifying it. You're in there, you might as well take care of it. So what we have to do now is we have to remove these 6 bolts from the face of the old water pump, the original water pump, because we are going to have to punch out the impeller or press out the impeller with the bearing. Because here is your culprit. When the bearing goes bad on the factory water pumps for these LT1s, so this weep hole right here, this is where coolant drains out of that weep hole all over your OptiSpark, basically killing the OptiSpark. So we have already stuffed the water jackets for the water pump. We've already cleaned off all the old gasket material, and we are going to punch out this drive spline and impeller along with the bearing to install the freeze plug that is included with the electric water pump. Now this is a remanufactured water pump, so it already came with a different size bolt, but these are 10 millimeter. The bolt's supposed to come out, not the socket. You will be retaining these bolts for the install of the electric water pump. So once that's removed, this comes off, and this is what we're going to be pushing out. Now you can do this 2 ways. You can do this with a hammer and a punch. I would recommend a punch. You don't want to be putting the pressure on the impeller. You want to be putting it right in the middle on the drive spline right there. So you want to put the pressure on there and either press or punch it out with a hammer. You want this thing on the ground if you're going to use a punch and a hammer. Now I'm using a slightly heavier hammer than your standard hammer, just because it makes a little bit less work in the end. But yeah, we're gonna start and we're gonna punch this out, so have it on a board so it doesn't the aluminum doesn't get scraped up on the concrete, which is always a good safety. And starting to go. Just like that. We are going to punch the rest of this out, but the outer bearing in the back and the drive pin is already gone. So now we have to punch out the inner bearing, and that's going to go this way You can see the bearing right there. So we can punch this out. Just like that. And now the inner bearing is removed. So the inner and outer bearings are both removed. Now we're going to clean this up and we're going to drive the freeze plug in through here. So for this particular case, I'm just going to use a brass wire brush, a bit for the drill, and we're just going to clean this up. Should be done real fast. Just like that, it's clean. We're going to push it in a little bit more just so we can get that surface area where the bearing was sitting cleaned up. There. So now we got all that. I'm going to go in it with a hand wire brush. I'm going to clean the rest of this out, and then we'll be good to push the freeze plug into that hole. So just a regular wire brush. You want a aluminum brush or brass. You don't want to scuff up the aluminum surface of the housing. You just want it to be nice and clean. If you have an air compressor or a couple of cans of dust off or anything like that that's just compressed air, that comes in real handy for knocking the dust off everything and any debris that you may have broken loose while cleaning it up. Something like that. Now here's something to note. There's a shallow and a deep freeze plug. If you're going to use a deep freeze plug, you have to grind off this lip in here. Because if you try to put the deep freeze plug in here, you're not going to be able to seat it all the way, which is potentially going to cause a leak in the back. So just remember which depth of freeze plug you have, and make sure you do or do not need to grind off that lip. So we have a 1 1/8 inch PC25B freeze plug, brass. So we're going to stick that here. You always want to get a socket that's almost the same inner diameter, so that way it seats really well. You can use a hammer, drive it in, and you get that higher pitch, you know you're pretty much in there. So we're going to make sure it's seated all the way around. Yep, it's the same all the way around. Now, for additional protection, and I don't mean blowing it out with air, what you want to do is on this side, you're going to put a little layer of black RTV in there. You don't have to like fill the hole up, but you just want it around a nice smooth ring bead of it around this area where the freeze plug seats to that lip, especially on this little gap right here at the bottom. You want to make sure you have that filled up, so that way you're just ensuring that nothing is going to leak after the install. So now I'm going to get the black RTV and we'll fill it up. So ultra black, gasket maker, oil resistant is always a good choice. And you don't need a thick bead, you just need to put a good amount in there. You use your finger to seat it all the way around that lip. That's all you really need to do. And like I said, you're not filling up the hole, just putting enough in there to ensure a seal, because you want to cover up that seat. There. So once that's done, let it dry completely, give it a good hour, and then continue with the assembly. Now before seating the electric water pump to the water pump housing, you want to make sure this surface is really clean. So this has a little bit of glue from the original assembly when it was rebuilt. So we're just going to use the same wire brush, go over it a little bit, clean all that glue off, then we'll blow it out to make sure we have a nice clean connecting surface for the new pump. When you have the right tools, it makes things go so much faster. So, there we have that. I'm going to wipe all this off. And that'll be nice and clean. Still got a little bit there. Alright, now get the air. Anything that still might be in there for debris, just take a dry shop towel, get in there with your hand or fingers or whatever you want, and get any other debris that may be in there. If you're going to put this back on the engine, you don't need a bunch of debris floating around your engine system, your cooling system. Like that. So now that that's all clean, this Meziere comes with an O-ring that goes around the seat right here. You can see it, and that's going to slip right in this groove here. So make sure the O-ring's on here nice and good, because from the factory, you know, when they ship this thing out, sometimes it'll pop off. So you want to make sure, just kind of rub it a little bit with your fingers, make sure it's seated all the way around. Can you line up the holes? There's no grinding required for this water pump. There are a few other aftermarket electric water pump motors that have what do you call them? They're like little tabs that are marked for alignment, and it requires you to grind out like little areas, little grooves for those tabs to fall into place. But Meziere does not require that. And putting these bolts back on, you just need to snug them up. There's no particular torque specification. You just want them tight, but you're not going to hulk it, because after all, you are bolting into an aluminum housing, so you don't want to strip them. So just get them seated. And now that that's seated, time. That's tight. That's tight. 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 Whoop. And tight. So, with that complete, we are ready to mount the water pump back onto the engine block. We're getting ready to install the gaskets onto the housing of the water pump. We're going to go ahead and take these out, which we put these in just to collect any debris when we were scraping off the old gasket material. It's always a good idea. Get those out. Believe it or not, this is actually one whole sheet of shop towel. It's folded in 3 and rolled up. Not too tight, but it makes a perfect fit in there. All that out. Now all the channels are clean. We're going to use a little bit of RTV just to put a thin film on the water pump side. So this way the gaskets will stick to it as we mount it to the engine. So you put a little dab on your finger. All you're doing is just lightly coating it, just basically to act as a glue instead of a gasket. You don't want to goop it up so much to where you get it in the channels. Just like that. Make sure you have nothing on the inside of the water channels. Okay, and you just lay that on down. It's all nice and evenly distributed. Now, you do not have to use RTV for this step, but for me it makes it a heck of a lot easier for installing, so that way the gaskets do not fall off as you're seating the water pump to the block. That's the only real reason I do that. Now, the next step is to mount it to the engine block. Okay. Installing the water pump, making sure that the wires are pushed out of the way, making sure that we're just going to put this on the guide pins that are already here on the timing chain cover. Slide it on. You're just going to get these bolts started. You don't even have to put them all on, you just want to get them started so it's got it in place and it's not going to come off. So, just going to get them started by hand. You can use the socket with the extension if you need to. And next step is to snug them down and torque them. So even with an electric ratchet, we're just going to snug these bolts up and we're going to come back at it with a torque wrench. Snug. And this is, we are using a 9/16 deep socket. Okay, and we are going to set the torque wrench to 35 foot-pounds. Doesn't require any more than that. So 35 on the dot, lock it. Do a crisscross pattern. Top left, bottom right, top right, bottom left. And we do the outside bolts. Then we go over it one more time just to make sure they all click. Okay. You stopped? Now that it's mounted, we're going to be reinstalling the air pump. If your car still has an air pump, you've got to put that back on, so we're going to remount that. And then we're going to, when we come back, we're going to change the thermostat, and then we're going to get to the wiring. So now that we got the water pump mounted and torqued to the engine block, we're going to go ahead and take this time to go ahead and change out the thermostat while we have it dry, and then we're going to reconnect all the hoses. Get that off. Now, even though this thermostat may be good, you'll want to go ahead and change it. Just keep this in a box. You can actually put it in the box that this one came in, and just keep it in the trunk, because you never know if you're going to need one. It's never a bad idea to have a spare one that's still good in the vehicle. Put this back on. It has its own rubber seal all the way around it, so you do not need to put any RTV or anything like that on here to seal it. But you do want to put the bolts down evenly, not one side at a time. So go back and forth until you get them snug. And you don't want to hulk it, you just want them snug to where they don't move anymore. And it's on there, it's completely sealed. So now we're going to hook the hoses back up. it all on. Release the clamps. Hoses are not pinched. So now we're going to get to the wiring of the water pump. Now I'm going to run this wire along this side. It's going to go under the throttle body back here and go along this channel up to the fuse box. For the wiring of the water pump, we're going to run it behind the water pump and under the throttle body. I'm going to have it go under the alternator, run it up here. It's going to go under the power steering box and up to the fuse box. We're going to wire this to the fuel pump relay circuit, which is this guy right here. So that means we have to take this box out. The power supply is going to be right here on the battery terminal next to the fuse box. So get ready for some fun wiring. So if we're running the wiring under the alternator, we have to remove the alternator. Since the battery's already unplugged from the negative side, we're going to go ahead and remove the belt, and we're going to go ahead and take the alternator off so we can run the wires where we need to from the fuse box to the water pump, routing them under the alternator. One of our next steps is to remove this bolt off the battery cable here. Now this part of the harness, this is what feeds power to this fuse box from the battery. This wire is a direct wire to the battery. So this nut can get kind of stuck on here. So I'm using a little butterfly impact. I call it Zippy. It pops it right off real quick, and it's not going to twist it off, because if you try doing this by hand sometimes with too big of a tool, you're going to twist the heck out of this and possibly damage it, which in turn is going to damage power from here to the rest of your fuse box. So try to find like an impact or a small impact that has enough torque to zip this off real quick, because the quicker you get it off using an impact, the better results you're going to have. So now that that's off, we'll be able to put the power wire for the circuit breaker for the electric water pump. We're going to wire it up to this post. So now that we have this terminal loose, we're going to go ahead and loosen these two nuts here, because we're going to take the fuse box out of its casing. That one you don't have to completely remove, because the bracket just slides right off of it. So, and these are held in here. You can get right on top of it, please. There's these two little tabs. So you push that one out away and that one out away, and then you can bring the fuse box straight up and you slide this out of the way. So now you actually have room to tie in the circuit. We're going to be going to this, I think, where is it? Which wire? I think this gray wire right here is what we're going to tie into as a signal for the relay for the water pump circuit. Now we're going to go ahead and connect. This is the fuse box plug that came with the electric water pump. So we're going to run this under here, under the throttle body behind the water pump. We're going to go ahead and plug this in. Like that. So go ahead and pull that circuit through, and this fuse box is going to end up right over here. So that way, if anything happens, and if the motor overheats for some reason or something like that, the fuse will be right here, so you can switch it out. All you got to do is pop that cap. It's already got a 25 amp fuse in it. So you do that, cover it up, and it's weatherproof. Now the ground for this, we're going to run it right over here. We're going to cut the ground short. The ground's going to go right where the factory battery harness goes to ground on the engine, which is right here on that stud. So we're going to remove that nut, take this bracket off, and we're going to go ahead and put a spade to connect this ground wire to that location. You couldn't get a better ground than that if you tried. So now we have the ground right here, and now you can see the terminal that goes off to the left there. That's for the that goes to the battery for the ground. So we got also have the ground for the torque head unit, but that's where we're going to put the ground for the water pump. Got it? I'm going to run this right on there, on that stud. Okay, so we've already got the gray wire for the fuel pump relay severed and spliced. Now I'm using a step connector, which I'm going to put the small step on the part going to the relay itself. I will pinch it here as soon as I can get it in position. It's kind of hard to hold all this stuff at once, I can tell you that. So you take it on there. Crimp it and fold it. Okay, so now it's got the larger side available for the rest of the connection, and we're going to be running the relay wire, which is this. This goes to the switch source, so this is to the relay. But this is going to tell the relay to activate. So this thin blue wire, which is going to be mounted on the outside of the box, we're going to mount it right here. We're going to have the circuit breaker over here. So this is going to be mounted here along with the relay. And this little blue wire, you're not going to need much of it. Maybe about that much. It's going to run under the fuse box. So this is really all we're going to need. That I'm going to splice off the end of it here, which is a very small wire. It's like a 18 gauge, maybe even a 20. So, but that's all we need for the signal to power this relay. So I'm going to have this twisted over here. I'm going to cut a little bit of that off as soon as I get done twisting these two together. Use some cutters because we don't need too much of that sticking out. That's all we need. So now that we got these guys twisted together, we're going to run it to that
and then I'll clamp it. So let me get my let me get this retwisted back together. I'll clamp it in, then we'll run some heat shrink around it. Let me use this first. Good settle needle nose can really help twist these things together, because a lot of times you can't do it with your thumbs. So, okay. The only problem with trying to have too much stuff in one tool. Hold on. Okay, so I had to use a small pair of pliers because there's not much room to work here, but I was able to get this crimped in. You always slide some heat shrink on one of the wires to have that ready. So now that we have that, make sure it's centered on the connector. Nature's being a little bit cruel to us today, but okay, that happens. Alright, so now we have that ready. Now we can put the fuse box back together with the wires hanging out the side. They go into these slots right here. Press it down till it locks into place. And we got 2 grooves here and 1 there for locking it down. So got that. Tighten those down. Go ahead and put the lid back on, and then we're on to the next phase of mounting the relay block and the circuit breaker. So this relay kit from Painless Wiring comes with 2 short self-tapping screws and 1 long one. We're only going to use the 2 short ones because you don't want to drill too far into this plastic fuse box. But right here is where we got the relay box. And you can see on the other side, if you bring the camera over here, it doesn't penetrate the inner shell. It just goes, through the outside shell, and the thickness of the relay box holds it steady, so it doesn't go any further than that. Same thing for the circuit breaker. Now the circuit breaker gets mounted over on this side, next to the relay box. I'll go ahead and do that. And you just need a quarter inch nut driver is all you need, because these are self-tapping, short self-tapping screws. So you just got to get them started and get them in there. And that's all you need. So now that that's on here, this red wire here from the relay is going to get attached to here. And this one is going to run from here to here. Then the last wire we run, well, the next to the last wire, it does have a little relay ground, which we will create right here on the wheel well. And then this blue wire is the only one that you're going to have to run to connect to this one for the electric water pump. Okay, so we have the relay box power wire going to the terminal, one terminal of the circuit breaker. We've already put the spade on for the additional power wire that goes from the positive terminal on the fuse box, and we're going to put a small spade here to get it to the other half of the circuit breaker. Then this part is complete. With the exception of this ground wire right here, all the power wire running is complete. Then we have to route this wire all along here to get to this point. Go ahead and cut. So now that this is all wired in, we just have to mount this ground. We have to create one right here Got to scrape some paint away, but now the circuit breaker and the relay is connected to the fuel pump system. So when the fuel pump is running, the water pump's running. There's other ways you can wire this. You can actually wire it to the air pump if you haven't deleted it already, which that has not been done on this car. This car still has an air pump, so we can't tap into that circuit. But there's several ways you can wire this. I just like this way because it's the most, I don't want to say convenient, but the most efficient. Because as long as the fuel pump's running, the water pump's running. So as long as the engine's on, the water pump's running. Some people run it with a toggle switch and just leave this fuse box on its own with no additional backup. And there's a variety of ways. Some people have buzzers, like sound buzzers on their dash with a diode that lights up to ensure that it's on. And if the diode ever goes off, they'll make a buzzing noise. You know, like I said, there's tons of ways to wire this, but to me, this is the most efficient. Okay, we're gonna scrape a little bit of the paint off right about here so we can make this fresh ground for this relay box. You don't have to take a lot off, just enough to cover that spade. So, just using a little precision screwdriver, which is plenty big enough to do the job. It doesn't take a lot of time. And that should about do it. Closer. Make this a little bit more rounded. Okay. And there we have that. We've got a self-tapping screw here. So I'm gonna put that in there. Let me get my screwdriver. So, that. Just make sure it's all snugged up and you're good to go. So now the only wire left, which we've already routed, is the power wire to the electric water pump. Okay, after getting everything hooked up, and we did a circuit test just using a test light probe. Everything is wired to the fuel pump relay. So as long as the engine's running, the electric water pump is spinning. One nice little bonus about this is when you have an electric water pump, you can actually order another pigtail to plug into it by the fuse and put alligator clips on the other side to hook it directly up to your battery. So that way, whenever you're having to flush out the coolant out of your engine, you can just pinch off whichever hoses you want to clean out and just turn your electric water pump on using the alligator clip harness running directly off your battery, and you'll be able to flush this whole thing out without a problem. The electric water pump really helps for that. So anyway, that's it. This engine's going to run a lot cooler, and it's not going to have a whole lot of any overheating problems when it comes to stop and go traffic. So take care.